Every single year, the same lists come out. International Living publishes their Global Retirement Index. Quote, Nomad Capitalist drops a video telling you Portugal is the answer, and every single year, hundreds of thousands of Americans read those lists, trust those lists, and some of them make life-altering decisions based on those lists. Here's what they're not telling you. Some of those rankings are partially funded by the very tourism boards and government agencies whose countries appear in the top 10. Some of them use cost of living data that's 2-3 years out of date. In a post-inflation world where that gap means the difference between living comfortably and quietly going broke. Some of them rank countries without ever distinguishing between the safe neighborhoods and the ones the US State Department has flagged with Level 3 travel advisories. And almost none of them tell you that the number one ranked country for one retiree might be completely wrong for you because they're optimizing for a generic, imaginary American that doesn't actually exist. You deserve better than that. We spent months pulling apart the methodology behind the biggest retirement rankings on the internet. We cross-referenced them against 2026 cost of living data, current visa requirements, real expat forum reports, and State Department advisories that went live in the last 6 months. Then we built our own ranking from scratch. Transparent criteria, honest trade-offs, zero tourism board money. The results? Almost completely different from what you've been told. 7 countries make our list. Number 7 will make some people angry. Number 1 will surprise almost everyone. And number 4 is the one the big publications keep ranking in the top 3, right up until you look at the actual numbers. Stay to the end, because that's the one that matters most. Before we get into it, here's exactly how we built this ranking, because you should be asking. We weighted 5 criteria equally, and we're telling you what they are so you can disagree with us in the comments, which we genuinely want. First, actual 2026 cost of living for a single retiree, not national averages, but what a foreigner renting in the expat-friendly areas actually pays. Second, healthcare quality and accessibility specifically for people over 60 who may need more than an annual checkup. Third, visa stability. Has the program changed in the last 3 years, and how much uncertainty exists right now? Fourth, safety. Disaggregated by region, not national crime statistics that lump rural villages in with gang-controlled urban corridors. And fifth, English accessibility, not just some people speak English, but whether you can live a full life, navigate a medical emergency, fight a landlord dispute, and make real friends without learning a new language. No country paid to be here, no affiliate relationship influenced any placement. Let's get into it. Let me be precise, because this is exactly the problem with how every publication covers Mexico. They say Mexico like it's one place. Puerto Vallarta, Oaxaca, Mexico City, Mérida, Tulum, San Miguel de Allende. These are not the same country in any meaningful sense. The crime levels are not the same. The costs are not the same. The expat experience is not the same. International Living has ranked Mexico in their top 5 for years, and they're right for about 3 of those cities. What they consistently understate is that entire swaths of Mexico carry active U.S. State Department Level 3 advisories, quote, reconsider travel, and some regions sit at Level 4, which is do not travel, the same designation used for active war zones. Those regions don't show up in the highlight reel. Here's what's true and what's actually useful. Mérida in the Yucatan is genuinely one of the safest mid-sized cities in all of Latin America, with a monthly budget for a single retiree sitting around $1,200 to $1,600, a functioning healthcare system, and a warm, walkable city center. San Miguel de Allende is beautiful and well-established, but increasingly expensive. What cost $1,400 a month in 2021 now runs $2,000 to $2,400 for the same lifestyle, and the rankings haven't caught up to that reality. Puerto Vallarta sits somewhere in the middle. Mexico's temporary resident visa, which converts to permanent residency after 4 years, requires proving monthly income of around $1,400, achievable on a modest Social Security benefit. But that requirement changes with the exchange rate, which fluctuates significantly. The verdict: Mexico belongs on a list of places worth researching, not at the top of a list of places to move without doing that research. If a publication is ranking Mexico as a unified destination, they are being sloppy, and you should treat everything else they say with skepticism. Panama City gets cited constantly, and 15 years ago, that praise was earned. The Pensionado Visa is still one of the most generous retirement programs on paper. Discounts on everything from airline tickets to medical care to restaurant bills, permanent residency, no minimum asset requirement, just proof of $1,000 a month in pension income. On paper, it's extraordinary. But here's what 2026 looks like on the ground. Rental prices in Panama City neighborhoods where you'd actually want to live, Miraflores, El Cangrejo, Casco Viejo, have risen between 40 and 60% since 2020. A furnished one-bedroom that cost $700 in 2021 is now $1,100 to $1,400. A lifestyle that multiple publications still describe as achievable on $1,500 a month now realistically requires $2,000 to $2,200 in the capital. The interior, Boquete, Padasi, El Valle, remains genuinely affordable, but those areas have their own infrastructure and isolation trade-offs. Crime in Panama City has also increased measurably. Petty theft and muggings in tourist-adjacent areas have risen, and while violent crime against expats is still relatively rare, it's no longer the anomaly it once was. Panama is not a bad choice. It still has some of the best infrastructure in Central America, English is widely spoken in business and healthcare contexts, and the pensionado perks are real. But anyone publishing Panama as a top 3 destination in 2026 based on data from 2022 is doing you a disservice. Oh, deep breath. I know some of you love Costa Rica, some of you have already moved there. This isn't an attack on your life choices, it's an attack on the way publications cover it. Costa Rica appears in the top 5 of virtually every major retirement ranking, every single year. Here is what that ranking almost never includes. Costa Rica is no longer cheap. San Jose and the Central Valley, where most expats cluster for access to healthcare and infrastructure, now run $1,800 to $2,400 a month for a single retiree living modestly. The beach towns, Tamarindo, Jaco, Manuel Antonio start at $2,000 and climb fast. The pensionado visa requires $1,000 a month in pension income and is genuinely straightforward to obtain, but that's about the only bargain left. The official CNID data and multiple independent expat surveys from 2025 tell the same story. Costa Rica has reached a tipping point where the cost of living for foreigners now rivals parts of Southern Europe. The dollar goes about as far here as it does in Lisbon, which is to say, not as far as it did 5 years ago when these rankings were formed. Why does Costa Rica keep appearing at the top? Partly because it genuinely is beautiful, safe, politically stable, and English-friendly. Partly because the tourism infrastructure, which benefits enormously from this narrative, is very good at keeping the story alive. The pensionado program actively courts international publicity. None of that makes it dishonest, exactly. It just means you're getting a marketing pitch dressed up as independent journalism. The verdict: if you have $2,500 a month or more, Costa Rica is legitimately excellent. If you're working with $1,500 or even $2,000, the publications pointing you here are setting you up for a rude surprise within 18 months of arrival. If you've been following retirement content for the past 3 years, you've seen Portugal at or near the top of every list. And from 2018 to 2022, that was genuinely warranted. Lisbon, Porto, the Algarve, European quality of life, English widely spoken, beautiful weather, and the non-habitual resident tax regime making pension income essentially tax-free for 10 years. Then 2024 happened. Portugal officially ended the NHR tax program, replacing it with a FICI, the Incentive for Scientific Research and Innovation, which specifically excludes retirees living on passive income. The Golden Visa program that attracted tens of thousands of foreign residents was dramatically restricted. And Lisbon rental prices, already strained by a housing crisis, have risen so sharply that furnished one-bedrooms in livable neighborhoods now start at $1,200 and commonly run $1,600 to $1,900. Publications that covered Portugal's transformation are now quietly updating their language. Phrases like "one of the best" replacing the flat number one of previous years. But many rankings still carry Portugal at the top, citing benefits that no longer fully exist for new arrivals. There is still a valid case for Portugal in 2026, specifically in secondary cities. Coimbra, Braga, Setúbal, the interior of the Alentejo. Costs are meaningfully lower. The country is still beautiful, safe, English accessible, with excellent healthcare. But the specific tax advantage that made Portugal exceptional is gone for retirees, and anyone ranking it in the top 3 without that caveat is writing about the Portugal of 2021. Malaysia keeps appearing in the middle of most major rankings, usually 5 through 8, treated as a solid but not glamorous option. That's backwards, and the data is clear about why. Penang, a 285 square mile island off the northwest coast of peninsular Malaysia, is doing something almost nothing else on any serious retirement list can claim in 2026. It is still genuinely affordable and has not had a significant cost of living surge. A furnished one-bedroom in a safe, walkable neighborhood runs $400 to $650. Groceries run $100 to $150 a month, eating well. A hawker stall meal, and Penang's food has been ranked among the best in the world by Lonely Planet, CNN Travel, and multiple Michelin-adjacent guides, costs $1 to $3. The total monthly budget for a single retiree living comfortably, $1,200 to $1,500. Malaysia is a former British colony. English is the second official language, used in business, law, medicine, and daily conversation between people of different ethnic backgrounds for whom it serves as a common tongue. You will not struggle here. The MM2H visa program, Malaysia My Second Home, has been running for over 20 years. It was overhauled in 2021, making it more restrictive and expensive, which is worth noting. Financial requirements went up, but it is stable, established, and thousands of Americans are living under it right now. Private hospitals in Penang, Gleneagles, Island Hospital, Penang Adventist, are internationally accredited, staffed by doctors trained in the UK and Australia. A specialist consultation runs $25 to $40. An MRI is $150 to $250. Procedures that cost $15,000 in the US routinely run $2,000 to $4,000 here. The catch: the heat. 85 to 92 degrees Fahrenheit with high humidity year-round. Most people acclimatize, but it's not for everyone, particularly if you have heart or respiratory conditions. Alcohol is heavily taxed. Beer and wine are pricier than most of Southeast Asia. And the MM2H process benefits from using a local agent or lawyer. Don't try to navigate it solo. Why is Penang only number 3? Because there are 2 places in 2026 that we believe are more complete packages for first-time movers, easier to enter, and harder to make a mistake in. The Philippines is treated as a Southeast Asian budget option in most rankings, acknowledged as affordable but never seriously positioned as a top-tier retirement choice. That framing is wrong, and here's why. Cebu City is a modern, functioning city with internationally accredited hospitals, fast internet in expat-friendly neighborhoods, an international airport, world-class diving, and a warm culture toward Americans that is rooted in nearly 50 years of shared history as an American territory. This is not generic hospitality. Filipinos don't just tolerate Americans. There is a genuine, documented cultural warmth here that expats describe consistently across forums, communities, and first-hand accounts. English is an official language, not widely spoken, official. Every government document, every hospital form, every school, every court proceeding. You can arrive with 0 Filipino and live there for the rest of your life without ever needing a single word of it. That is not a marketing line. That is the legal reality. The Philippines Special Resident Retiree Visa, SRRV, is administered by the Philippine Retirement Authority and is one of the most generous programs in the world. Permanent residency, no annual renewal, multiple entry privileges, and government-mandated discounts on hotels, transportation, restaurants, and medical services specifically for SRRV holders. You are formally rewarded for retiring here by government policy. The monthly budget in Cebu City: $900 to $1,300 living well. Rent for a modern one-bedroom in a safe neighborhood: $300 to $500. A full meal at a quality local restaurant: $3 to $6. Why is it number 2 and not number 1? 2 reasons. First, typhoons. The Philippines sits in one of the world's most active typhoon corridors, and while Cebu and Palawan are less exposed than the eastern Visayas, the risk is real and requires serious insurance planning. Second, bureaucracy. Visa requirements have shifted, the SRRV program has had procedural changes, and government offices move at their own pace. Budget extra time and patience. But for the budget, for the English ease, for the cultural warmth, and for a government that has structurally decided to make you welcome, the Philippines is the best value on this list. Here's where we part ways most sharply with the established rankings. Medellín, Colombia is consistently ranked somewhere between 5 and 12 on major retirement lists, weighed down by a reputation built on a reality that hasn't existed for 25 years. International Living mentions it cautiously, Forbes qualifies it heavily, Nomad Capitalist has begun warming up to it, and none of them are willing to say what the data in 2026 actually shows. For a specific type of retiree, Medellín is the single best combination of cost, quality, healthcare, and lifestyle available anywhere in the world right now. Let's start with the cost, because this is where every other destination on this list cannot compete. Medellín's El Poblado and Laureles neighborhoods, safe, walkable, full of restaurants, cafes, parks, and expat community infrastructure, offer furnished one-bedrooms for $500 to $750. Groceries run $120 to $180 a month. Eating out at a quality local restaurant costs $4 to $8. The total monthly budget for a comfortable single retiree lifestyle: $1,200 to $1,600. At the lower end, that is achievable on a Social Security check alone. Colombia's Pensionado visa, officially the Visa de Pensionado, requires proof of a foreign pension or Social Security payment equivalent to 3 times Colombia's national minimum wage, which in 2026 works out to roughly $870 a month. If your Social Security check clears that threshold, you can live here legally, indefinitely. Medellín sits at 5,000 feet above sea level. The climate is called the City of Eternal Spring, 70 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit year-round, low humidity, 0 seasons, no sweating through the tropics, no heating bill, just perpetual mild spring, every single day. Healthcare is the detail that closes the case. Medellín is a legitimate medical tourism destination. The city has invested heavily in private hospital infrastructure. Clínica Las Américas, Hospital Pablo Tobón Uribe, and Clínica del Country in Bogotá, which many Medellín expats access for specialized care, hold international accreditation, have English-speaking staff, and charge 60 to 75% less than U.S. equivalents. Dental care is so far below U.S. costs that expats routinely say the dental savings alone offset a significant portion of their annual travel budget. Now the catch, and we are not going to minimize it because that would be exactly the kind of dishonesty we're calling out today. Colombia has real security concerns. Medellín has transformed dramatically since the 1990s, but it is not without crime. Petty theft, phone snatching, and quote, scopolamine drug-assisted robbery in nightlife areas are documented risks. The city's transformation is genuine and remarkable, but it requires real situational awareness. You need to learn which neighborhoods are safe, which areas to avoid at night, and basic street smart practices that anyone who grew up in a major U.S. city will recognize immediately. The broader country still has active conflict zones, particularly in rural areas and along specific corridor routes. Medellín, the city, is geographically and practically distinct from those areas, but the national context exists. Stay informed via the U.S. Embassy and the State Department's current advisories, which, as of 2026, list Colombia overall at Level 2, exercise increased caution, not the Level 3 or 4 that some older publications still imply. Second catch: Spanish. Unlike every other destination on this list, English is not widely spoken in Medellín outside of expat-heavy neighborhoods and upscale service environments. You can build a good life in El Poblado with minimal Spanish, many expats do, but you will be more comfortable, more safe, and more integrated if you commit to learning at least conversational Spanish before you move. A few months of Duolingo and a couple of language exchange apps will change your experience dramatically. Third, altitude. Medellín sits at 5,000 feet. Most people adapt within a week or two. But if you have serious cardiovascular or pulmonary conditions, check with your doctor before committing. The verdict. For a retiree who is physically healthy, financially working with $1,200 to $1,800 a month, willing to spend 3 to 6 months learning basic Spanish, and alert enough to practice urban common sense, Medellín in 2026 is the single most extraordinary value in retirement living anywhere in the world. Not despite the fact that the big rankings undervalue it, because of it. The lower your profile, the longer the window stays open. 7 destinations, 1 framework. Here's the rapid-fire version. Mexico. Valid in 3 specific cities. Dangerous if you treat it as one country. Panama. The visa is still excellent. The costs are not what they were. Do your math with 2026 numbers. Costa Rica. Genuinely beautiful. Genuinely not a $1,500 a month destination anymore, regardless of what the rankings say. Portugal. The tax advantage that made it number 1 is gone for retirees. The rankings haven't fully caught up. Malaysia, Penang, still one of the most complete packages on earth. First world healthcare at prices that shouldn't exist. English everywhere, stable and established. The Philippines, Cebu, the warmest cultural reception you'll find anywhere, a government that formally rewards you for showing up, $1,300 a month living well. And Medellín, eternal spring, $1,200 a month, the best private healthcare deal in the Western Hemisphere, and a reputation that's about 2 years behind the reality on the ground. Here's what none of the rankings will ever tell you, because it doesn't generate clicks. The best retirement destination isn't a place. It's a match between your specific health situation, your actual monthly income, your tolerance for heat and bureaucracy and occasional power outages, your need for English, and whether you want to be challenged by something genuinely new or comforted by something familiar. No list makes that decision for you, not theirs, not ours. We can give you the honest data. We can name the conflicts of interest. We can tell you when a ranking is selling you something. The decision Visiting first, talking to real expats, renting before you buy, building an emergency fund before you go. That part is yours. The world is genuinely wider than most people let themselves believe. But not all of it is built on solid ground. Know the difference before you step. Speaking of knowing the difference, we've already done a complete breakdown of the specific expat mistakes that turn a dream move into a financial disaster in the first 18 months. The things no ranking covers: healthcare coverage gaps, the bank account setup nobody warns you about, and the 3 countries where Americans are specifically being targeted by rental scams right now. That video is right there. It's worth your time.